My name is Luke. Growing up in a single-parent household, I landed a job at a small construction firm once I graduated high school. This company dealt with building renovations, interiors, and exteriors. I was fortunate to be hired as a sales representative there. I had my fair share of challenges dealing with some tough craftsmen and surrounded by older colleagues. I was able to push through as they trained me well and treated me kindly. After working there for 7 years, when I turned 25, the owner of the construction firm suggested that I should try out for a mid-career recruitment exam at a national home building company. He appreciated the work I did and felt I should explore a bigger world. Initially, I declined. I felt I hadn't yet repaid the kindness of the owners who hired me straight out of high school and taught me everything from scratch. But when I expressed this, the owner and my colleagues laughed. The best way you could repay us is if we can see you working your tail off at a big company. I was motivated with those words. I wanted to experience a broader world and let everyone see my hard work. Encouraged by everyone, I took that recruitment exam and passed with flying colors. And that's how I began working at a major home building company's branch as a sales representative. Starting out at the home building company, I struggled to keep up with the older colleagues. But I utilized everything I had learned and experienced, and I gave it my all to keep up. Finally, when I turned 30, I was transferred to work at the company's main office in sales. When I went to share the good news with the folks from my previous job, they were genuinely happy for me. It's rare to find a workplace that's so supportive even of those who've left. I was blessed to have such a wonderful workplace. Seeing their joy, I felt even more motivated to give my best at the main office. And that's when I met Catherine, who worked as the CEO's secretary. Our first encounter was quite the surprise. "Hey, Luke, isn't it? Remember me?" she exclaimed, looking as excited as a young girl, and I couldn't help but smile. Her vibrant and cheerful personality hadn't changed a bit. Catherine and I were high school classmates. "Of course I remember you. It's been a while. I had no idea we worked for the same company. You never attend any high school reunions. I've been wanting to catch up." Catherine was as chatty as she was in high school, but she had changed in appearance. Back in school, she was this popular, friendly girl, and now, over a decade later, she's become a mature and stunning woman. The tan look she had from her tennis days in high school was replaced by a fair-skinned beauty. And her mature makeup look was impeccable. I used to have a soft spot for Catherine in high school but never had the courage to confess since she was so popular. Seeing her again after all these years got my heart racing like old times. Yet, she was oblivious to my feelings and even reached out for a handshake. Of course, I reciprocated, and she said with a smile, "I'm glad. Let's catch up more from now on." Unknowingly casting her charm, I realized I was falling for Catherine all over again. Later on, I casually asked if she had a boyfriend, and the sheer relief I felt upon learning she was single was overwhelming. Meeting Catherine gave me more energy for my work. The director of sales at the headquarters was an older kind gentleman who patiently taught me, a guy who only graduated from high school, how to do the job. However, that all changed one day. It was about a year after I joined the sales department at the headquarters, around the time I was thinking of confessing my feelings to Catherine. Over that year, Catherine and I have grown close enough to go out for dinner together. So, I mustered the courage, hoping we could become a couple, but then, shockingly, the director of sales fell ill and had to abruptly resign. This sudden news rocked all the employees. And then, a guy named John, who had previously been a manager and graduated from Harvard, took over the department. This turn of events wasn't good for me at all. In the headquarters sales department, most of the folks around me were college graduates and competent. Among them, I was just a high school graduate who used to work at a small local construction firm. John had this elitist view, putting too much value on higher education. He had often thrown unkind words at me. "You sure you're in the right place? We don't need high school grads here. And don't get too comfortable just because the director was nice. I won't acknowledge you," were the sorts of things he'd whisper about me. But the fact was, being just a high school grad, I couldn't keep up with my colleagues. Still, I gritted my teeth and persevered. John wouldn't say these things in front of the former director, and on the surface, he didn't assign unreasonable tasks to me. That's how I managed to endure it. But with the director gone and John at the helm, his attitude towards me might become more overt, and I was really worried about that. Sadly, my worries came true. Ever since he became the director, John's bad attitude towards me intensified. "He's too slow, dead weight of the sales team. This is why we shouldn't hire high school grads." He'd say these things even in front of others. He'd clearly pile on more work than I could handle, resulting in endless overtime. Many times, he'd give me urgent tasks right before lunch, leaving me with no time to eat. Work used to be fun, but since John took over, my stress levels skyrocketed. During these tough times, Catherine was my pillar of strength. I felt pathetic about my situation and hadn't told Catherine about the issues with Director John. But maybe she sensed something from the way I appeared at work. Always cheerful, she'd invite me out on weekends to take a break, gift me energy drinks, and sometimes even bring me lunch, saying I made too much. She tried to cheer me up without asking me anything, and I was deeply grateful. I honestly think that I might not have continued working there if it wasn't for her. For me, the only time off I had at work, other than seeing Catherine, was taking breaks. It was about heading to the smoking area. I don't smoke, and neither does John. So, he would never come to this area. There weren't many smokers at the company, so it was mostly empty. For me, it was a haven. "Hey, you are here again today." The one who greeted me was an older gentleman I'd met at the smoking area. A dapper man in a sharp suit. Despite being much older, he was very respectful and gentle towards a younger guy like me. He told me his name was Robert, but he never revealed his last name or department. I was curious, but on the flip side, perhaps because I didn't know his department or position, I realized it might be better not having to tiptoe around him. I stopped prying. "How have you been lately? Are you getting along with the new director?" Robert asked me, as I shared with him how I was once again loaded with a ton of work for the day. Robert would always lend a listening ear. I shared about my challenges with John's actions, but when Robert asked, "That director is awful to you today too. Ever think about quitting?" I shook my head. I'm grateful to my current workplace for taking a chance on a high school graduate like me, who had little experience in sales. Folks at the construction company I used to work for said they wanted to see me out in the big world, hustling. It would be disrespectful to those who supported me if I showed any weakness now. Hearing this, Robert smiled warmly. "You're a good kid." Being called a kid at 30 was a bit embarrassing, but from Robert's perspective, I might seem like a young child or even a grandchild. I went on to share about my dreams. "I want to work even harder, let more people know and love our company. I want our clients to think they made the right choice, having me as their salesperson." After my enthusiastic declaration, Robert remarked, "I was once filled with such passion when I was young too. It's probably young folks like you who are holding up the company." Though his words felt a bit overly flattering, they were still comforting. It felt like I had gained another supporter in Robert. But a few days later, a crisis struck. John dumped a monumental error on me. But it was a mistake from a task that John had done himself. I didn't even know the details of the task until John pinned the mistake on me. Considering the error involved a major client, it could potentially tarnish our company's reputation. John's directorial position might be in jeopardy, I thought, but to my surprise, He shifted all the blame onto me and pressured me to resign. If I say it's your fault, then it is. You don't have to come in from tomorrow. For the sake of appearances, you'll need to take responsibility. A week of suspension and then you're out. Lucky you, you get to rest tomorrow. Take your time writing your resignation. Of course, I fought back, but to no avail. The rest of the sales team tried to gently tell John it wasn't my fault, but he was unyielding. It seemed my resignation was set in stone. When I saw Robert, I told him about it. To my shame, I think I was on the verge of tears. It's frustrating. Losing my job over a mistake I didn't make. I still wanted to give it my all here. Robert listened patiently, then patted me on the shoulder. It's all right. Everything is already in place. Just leave it to me. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I was too stunned by the recent events to ponder over his words. That day, I went home devastated. I couldn't eat or sleep during my week of suspension. Catherine called me numerous times and even came over, but I couldn't face her. I felt ashamed in front of her, even though she had always cheered me on. Understanding my feelings, she texted, "Remember, I'm on your side." Moved by her kindness, I couldn't help but shed tears. When my suspension ended, though I was told to bring a resignation letter, I didn't. I was determined to voice my grievances, even if it meant being fired. Wanting to talk to Robert, I headed to the smoking area. And there he stood, greeting me with his usual warm smile. As I was about to speak, Robert beat me to it and dropped a bombshell. "I have a favor to ask of you." Huh. I couldn't believe it at first, but when I looked into Robert's eyes, it didn't seem like he was lying. So, I decided to trust him and headed to see John. When John saw me, he had a smug grin on his face. "Lucky you, getting a whole week off. Took your sweet time with that resignation letter. Never had an undereducated subordinate like you before, but today's goodbye. Gonna miss ya." Looking down on me, I coldly replied to John, "I'm not quitting. I've been offered a position, so I'll work my hardest." "What? You talking nonsense? Got too much rest and went cuckoo." Faced with John's disbelief, I relayed Robert's message. He asked if I could be the department manager. "What? That's not possible." John's shock scream echoed throughout the office. Then, Robert and Catherine appeared. "What's up with you two?" Annoyed, John glared at both Robert and Catherine. To that, Catherine made a shocking statement. "He is the current chairman of the board." Not only was John stunned, but I was too. As the story went, Robert had retired from the position of CEO over 10 years ago. He held the title of chairman, but he left the management to his son, the current CEO. Chairman, John was frozen in shock. I remembered hearing that John joined the company midway. He had come about 5 years ago, so he probably didn't know what the chairman looked like. The chairman had avoided the limelight, declining all photo opportunities. So many, like us, didn't recognize him. The chairman, looking at me, spoke kindly. "Catherine, my executive assistant, mentioned that there might be someone judging others based on education. There were also rumors of employees being treated unfairly by seniors, thinking that if the CEO got involved, evidence might be covered up or tampered with. I disguised as an elderly employee to gather stories from various departments. Being retired for so long, the younger folks wouldn't recognize me. Some veteran employees did, but when I told them the reason, they all kept quiet." All this time, I had been complaining about John's treatment of me to Robert, unaware he was the chairman. "I truly meant it when I said I wanted you to be the department manager. The CEO is on board with this. We can't lose a talent like you." Hearing this, John turned pale. "What are you talking about? Manager, this is some joke. I can't handle that." "Well, you can always go back to being a regular employee. Your behavior has been quite inappropriate. We're considering demoting you. The execs are on the same page, so brace yourself." John was panicking. "I haven't done anything wrong." Everything was training. Stepping forward, Catherine said, "That won't work here. We've been interviewing other sales department staff. Some even kept notes of your remarks. You can't escape this." Realizing his mistakes, John looked defeated. "Don't you have something to say to Luke?" Urged by the chairman, John meekly said, "I'm sorry," and bowed his head to me. But then, in a quiet voice, he muttered, "Just a subordinate." I confidently retorted, "When did I ever say I was your subordinate? Our roles might reverse soon, you know. If John gets accepted as a regular employee, I'll be his boss. So, I think I'm allowed a little pushback." John bit his lip and glared at me, but I ignored him. Later on, the chairman formally asked me to become the sales department manager. I honestly wasn't sure about it, but when he said, "I want someone who is as dedicated to their job as you to be the manager," I couldn't refuse such a generous compliment. I bowed deeply. "I will give it my all. Thank you very much." When I looked up, Catherine was mouthing "Go for it." Having her support made me feel like I could achieve anything. Later on, my promotion to manager was officially announced, and John was demoted to a regular employee. The previous manager transferred to another department, and a new director came in, so things were hectic with all the handovers. But recently, things have finally settled down. Around that time, Catherine made a feast for me at her home to celebrate my promotion. I took that opportunity to confess my feelings for her. Originally, I planned to do it a year ago, but with all that happened with John, it just wasn't the right time. Thankfully, my confession went well. That night marked the beginning of our relationship, a moment I had been waiting for over a year. I was already over the moon, but Catherine had even prepared a gift for me. It was a new pair of leather shoes. The ones I had been wearing were old and worn out. Despite everything that had happened, she wanted to celebrate a fresh start for me. Actually, I've always been self-conscious about my large shoe size. But she took a mold from my current shoes and got the perfect pair for me. There was also a shiny shoehorn. I was amazed at how well the shoes fit when I slipped them on with the shoehorn. Wow, they fit perfectly. Thank you so much. I feel even more motivated to do well at work now. Yes, go for it. I love seeing you enjoy your work. I'm rooting for you. Her smile and those shiny shoes filled me with even more enthusiasm for my job. 2 years have passed since then. Now, in the sales department, no one judges people based on their educational background. Things are going smoothly in my new department, and it seems like it's a good fit for me. John works under me. At first, things were awkward, but after many heart-to-heart talks and a few arguments, he has become a valuable colleague. He has genuinely reflected on his actions. There have been changes in my personal life as well. Catherine and I got married, and she is now on maternity leave. I can't wait to start living with our upcoming baby and Catherine. I owe my current happiness to the chairman and Catherine, and also to the construction company that took a chance on me, even though I only had a high school diploma. Being surrounded by such wonderful people is my greatest pride. So, how was that? Subscribing to the channel would greatly motivate us. See you in the next video. I want to see all of you. My female boss reached out to me with those words. Perhaps because of the alcohol, the skin around her eyes has become reddish. Looking up at me with those slightly inebriated eyes, my heart inevitably raced. Little did I know, she would soon change my life. My name is Mike. I started working at an auditing firm as a certified public accountant, CPA. Being a CPA is considered one of the toughest qualifications, right behind becoming a doctor or lawyer. However, studying for this qualification was never tough for me. That's because I've always loved studying since I was a kid. I'd rather read one more book than play soccer outside with friends. At the auditing firm, I was involved in auditing major corporations and large businesses. It's a high-pressure job where there's no room for errors, but I found it rewarding. The harder you work, the more recognition you get. There's also a chance for promotions and raises, so it's a competitive environment where my colleagues and I would always strive to improve. I loved studying, but I wasn't just a bookworm. I valued my communication with colleagues. I had no complaints about the job or the people I worked with. It was a kind of job where I'd imagine of staying for years and years. So, I never thought I'd be envied by my colleagues. Among my peers, I was considered a fast-rising star. My boss used to say I was competent and had earned a lot of trust from those around me. They were excited about my future. But maybe that was the problem. One of my trusted peers pinned a significant mistake on me. I desperately tried to explain myself, but neither my boss nor my colleagues believed me. At that moment, I felt more despair than shock. The people I trusted, I thought they trusted me too, started pointing fingers at me the moment the mistake came to light. I lost faith in everyone and decided to resign. On my last day, I confronted the colleague who'd framed me. When I asked him why he claimed it was my mistake, he just smirked, saying I was too good at my job and too well liked by our supervisors. I was in the way of his own career advancement. I always believed that being competent and trusted by my superiors were assets. I never thought it could be a reason to be betrayed by someone I considered as a friend. I was speechless. After that, I joined a small CPA firm. The atmosphere here is much more scaled down to my previous job. And here I am, working as hard as before, or not really. If I gave it my all and faced a betrayal again, I don't think I'd ever recover. So, I've been playing it safe, just getting by. I don't want to get too close to my colleagues. Ever since that incident, I've been wary of people, and I try to keep my distance. I only communicate when necessary. People might think I'm a bit of a loner or gloomy. But then, I was assigned to go on a business trip with my beautiful boss, Catherine. Something really challenging happened during the trip. That day, we had a meeting with a client that ran late into the evening. We even had the dinner collectively, which ended up being filled with work discussions. By the time we got to the hotel, it was past 9 p.m. At the hotel front desk, we were told we had only one double room booked for both of us. In our company, the admin staff handles travel arrangements, including booking a hotel. There must have been some mistake, but sharing a room with a female colleague was not okay. When we asked if there were any other available rooms, they offered us a connecting room. 2 separate rooms, but with a door in between that allows you to enter without getting out to the corridor. Catherine might feel uncomfortable with that setup. I'll go look for another hotel. Please stay here without any worries. It's already late at night, and it's practically a private room because it has a door. Let's just stay here. Given that it's the weekend and I heard that most hotels around the area are usually booked up, Catherine and I decided to just stay in this connecting room. That night, we ended up having a drink and chatting. I've been out drinking with her, but those times were as a group, with other colleagues. It was my first time drinking one-on-one. I was a bit nervous drinking with my boss, but Catherine may have felt that and helped ease the tension with some light-hearted conversation, which was really nice. After a few drinks, with a slight buzz, she looked at me and said, "You act like you're not competent, but you're really quite talented, aren't you?" I felt exposed and looked straight at her. There was no stern, hard-working boss that I had known. Instead, it was a slightly tipsy Catherine with reddened eyes that made her look even more charming than usual. She then reached out and started patting my head, saying, "You really are a smart cookie, aren't you?" Looking up at her, I couldn't help but feel my heart race. However, soon after, Catherine said, "Maybe it's time to call it a night," and went back to her room. I couldn't stop thinking about the alluring version of Catherine that I saw after she had a few drinks. For a while, I just couldn't sleep. Thinking about her sleeping just beyond this wall made my heart race, and I ended up having another drink to help me sleep. The next day, I wasn't sure about how to approach her, but it turned out Catherine didn't remember much from when she was drunk. It was a mix of relief and a tad bit of disappointment. "I think you mentioned something about me being talented," I tried to joke. But Catherine looked at me very seriously and said, "That was from the heart." "Huh, what do you mean?" To my surprise, she showed me her laptop. "I've been meaning to talk to you about this." What she showed me was the website of the firm where I used to work. The audit firm I used to work at is considered one of the biggest in the industry, often said to hire only the best. Catherine had been curious ever since she saw the name of the company on my resume. When I was asked about my career before coming here, I usually lied, saying that I worked at a small audit firm. She probably figured I didn't want it known that I worked at a big firm, so she didn't ask further about it. "You wouldn't have worked there if you were incompetent. Plus, one of my friends from college works there. She said you were a rising star. Any truth to that?" I froze at her words. Who is this college friend of hers? And how much did she get to know about my time there? Does she also know about how I was betrayed, trusted by no one, and eventually resigned? Seeing my distraught face, Catherine was quick to assure me. I must have had a pretty rough look on my face. "I didn't ask her why you resigned. I figured you didn't want it to be known to the people at our company." She didn't want to spill the beans either, but I've been curious. To be honest, I was torn about whether or not to tell her. My past about being envied without realizing it, fully trusting my colleagues, and having no one believed in me are the things I am still ashamed of. I rather keep it hidden just to myself. "I don't want to push you to tell me. It might sound like a bossy order, but I do think that work would be more enjoyable if you relaxed a little. I was just thinking, if there's anything I can help you with, I am here for you." Despite her kind words, I couldn't bring myself to speak. Sensing my hesitation, Catherine said, "You can talk to me whenever," and tried to change the topic. I was relieved, but also began to wonder if it was okay to keep running away from my past. It's easy to go on pretending to be incompetent. But part of me longed to once again experience the joy of thriving in my job. For that, I couldn't keep running from and lying about my past forever. I remembered Catherine from the previous night, patting my head while she was tipsy. The boss patted my head, was slightly drunk. Remembering it feels embarrassing, but her touch was comforting. I felt a sense of security, like she was there to protect me. I could tell she wasn't just talking to me out of mere curiosity, but genuinely cared about me. I thought maybe this was my chance to move on from my past. "There's still time before hotel checkout." I stopped Catherine. It's kind of embarrassing, but could you listen to me?" At my words, Catherine brightened her expression. Her smile gave me a boost, and, well, as a man, it got to me. I thought I'd be nervous, but maybe it was thanks to the hot coffee Catherine got for me. I was able to talk about my past more at ease. Being betrayed, resigning because no one believed in me. Catherine just listened, without interrupting me. I know it's weird for me to say this, but I think I've grown up being pretty good at study and work, but I guess I wasn't great at building relationships. So, in my current job, I pretended to be incompetent so I wouldn't get hurt again. If I got betrayed, it'd hurt, so I tried not to get too involved with anyone. I'm kind of a coward. I'm just that kind of guy. When I finished talking, Catherine started pointing out all my flaws. "You're really good at planning and doing your work on time, always punctual and never cutting corners, but sometimes you skip lunch, right? The person at the next desk was worried about you. That's a minus. Your desk is always tidy, so you're organized. Whenever you work on making documents, it's so logical, and all the bosses, including me, appreciate it. But you sometimes help others with their work, don't you? And that increases your workload. You could ask others to help with all of the tasks more, but everyone's been worried if they're not reliable enough. And then, I think I was so shocked that my mouth was hanging open. She completely exposed my hidden feelings. Where are you going with this? Catherine just smiled. I thought you didn't understand your own worth when you said you were just that kind of guy. What I just said is what I think, and also what everyone else thinks. You might have tried to hide it, but being good or bad at work isn't really something you can hide. Everyone notices that you're competent and serious about your job, but they also felt like you intentionally keep your distance, so it's hard for them to approach you. I was surprised that not only Catherine, but also my colleagues noticed. And everyone pretended not to notice out of consideration for me. From what she said, it seems I've been making them worried. You should trust those around you more. Maybe in your previous job, no one believed in you, but maybe it's different at this job. Isn't it up to you, Mike? Everyone might be waiting for you to tear down that wall. Knowing that everyone sees both my strengths and weaknesses made me feel assured, like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Everyone has been watching me, haven't they? I mumbled to myself. Catherine laughed. You're just realizing that now. Everyone has always recognized your abilities and wanted to get along with you. You should be more confident in yourself. You'll enjoy work more if you do. I was glad I came on the strip with Catherine. I really felt that. For the first time since I resigned, I felt that I wanted to get close to everyone at work and contribute to the team. After that, I stopped being so pessimistic, thinking no one would trust me. I began to communicate more actively with my colleagues and started to propose some feedbacks for projects. Thank you for your support. I appreciate your work. Such words began to fly between me and my colleagues. I felt joy each time such exchange of kind words happened, and the trust between me and my colleagues started to grow. Being able to work with excitement again felt truly wonderful. One day, embezzlement was discovered at a certain company. It was a company our office had audited. The CEO was a nice, friendly guy, but he was tearfully wondering if he had to shut down his company. We wanted to help him, so we voluntarily discussed with him and advised what he could do for company management and internal reconstruction. I took the lead in that. I thought I could make use of what I've studied and my past experiences. With our help, the CEO managed to keep his business afloat. Of course, I was glad that the company and employees didn't have to lose their means of livelihood. But more than that, I became interested in management consulting. It was one of the things I wanted to try since I decided to become a CPA. As I studied more and gained experiences, I felt more confident. Encouraged by my colleagues and Catherine, I decided to start my own consulting firm. At first, most of my clients were people introduced to me by Catherine and the CPA firm I worked at. I truly have nothing but gratitude for everyone. Even after leaving the company, we still talk about what's going on in our industry regularly, and sometimes we meet up for drinks outside of work. Around the time the company got on track, I told Catherine about my feelings for her. It took me 5 years after meeting Catherine to finally muster the courage to confess. Truth be told, I've been attracted to her since that business trip. But after that, work was so fun, and I eventually went independent. I thought I'd confess once my business stabilized. But I felt there was a good chance with my confession. After going independent, I went out to eat with Catherine more often. And judging by her expressions and behavior during those times, I thought maybe I stood a chance. But when I finally confessed, Catherine looked down, seeming a bit shy. It seemed she was concerned about the age gap, which is about 10 years. She's so confident at work, but becomes a bit timid outside of it. I found that side of her endearing. So, just like she told me so many of my strengths during the business trip, I took the opportunity to tell her all the great things about her. I wanted to show her that age doesn't matter. And at the end, I told her, please have confidence in yourself. At that, Catherine gave a soft chuckle. She might have remembered telling me to have confidence in the past. And of course, her response to my confession was a yes. Thank you. It makes me feel shy a bit, but I'm looking forward to this new chapter with you. I understand that there might be times when Catherine feels a bit insecure. But during those times, I hope we can always believe in each other, acknowledge our strengths, and remind each other to have confidence. That's the kind of relationship I desire. I can finally fire a loser like you. How dare you say such words at the funeral of the CEO who took care of us? But I won't be defeated by those words. Because the CEO entrusted me with something. I've decided to protect what was entrusted to me by the CEO. My name is Robert. When I was a child, I lived with just my mom. She worked from dawn till dusk. I often felt lonely as a child, but looking back, she had to work that hard to raise me on her own. She was a kind, strong mother who would do anything for me. But she passed away when I was in elementary school. I was too young to remember the details. But I do remember her growing weaker with each passing day in the white-walled hospital room. Being Poe, she hesitated to go to the hospital, and by the time she was diagnosed, it was too late. She was hospitalized at the very day she saw a doctor. Her illness progressed quickly, and she passed away. My grandparents, on my mother's side, took me in. Despite their grief over losing their daughter, they held me tight and said, "From now on, we'll live together. Everything will be okay. We're here for you." To me, who thought I'd be all alone after losing my mom, those words from my grandmother meant the world. After that, the three of us, my grandparents and me, began our life together. Though they were retired, they continued working to support me. Life was still tough, but they showered me with all their love. That's why I never complained about our humble living. By the time I reached middle school, I wanted to start working to help them out. I wanted to start working right after middle school, but my grandparents wanted me to go to high school. They said that's what my mother in heaven would have wanted. I couldn't say no to that. Still, I worked part-time delivering newspapers and doing light work in a factory in the hope of making a little extra money for the family. My grandparents told me to enjoy my high school life, but for me, it was more important to ease their burden. After high school, I got a job immediately at a cleaning company. Although I was hired as a full-time employee, the pay wasn't great. But to me, it felt like a luxury. I didn't have any qualifications after high school, and no other company would have hired me as a full-time employee. I was assigned to clean various buildings and facilities. One of them was an elder care business company called Johnson Holdings. That's where I had a fateful encounter. Johnson's business involved home-based care, day services, and operating nursing homes. During one of the cleaning jobs there, I became friends with a man. Even though I wasn't an employee there, he'd chat with me warmly. He wondered why I was still young and working as a janitor, so he talked to me. I had nothing to hide, so I told him everything. About not having parents. About my financial struggles. My wish to make life easier for my grandparents. And my envy of the Johnson employees. I really wanted to work in elder care. I wanted to do something useful for my grandparents who took care of me. But my hopes never came true. Even though we were struggling, my grandparents managed to get me through high school. I couldn't very well say that I wanted to go to nursing school because I wanted to work as a caregiver. I'd spent most of my life working part-time jobs, so I never really had any friends. And that's why I had no one to confide in. Perhaps that's why I ended up telling everything to the kind old man who would listen quietly. After hearing my story, the old man said something I hadn't expected. "If you're interested in caregiving, why don't you work with us here?" I was taken aback and could only respond with a surprised, "What?" he explained to me. Turns out, he was the CEO of the same elder care company, Johnson Holdings, where I was working as a janitor. And at Johnson, they supported their employees in getting certifications and even provided workshops. You could earn your caregiving certification while working. After hearing my story, the CEO said, "Why not work here while pursuing your certification? Your pay will keep increasing once you are certified, and you'll have a wider range of job duties. More than anything, you're interested in caregiving, right? I want to work with someone as dedicated and family-oriented as you. Come join us." I was thrilled. The idea that I could study caregiving while working and still contribute to my family's income seemed like a dream. When I spoke to the cleaning company I worked for about the offer, they gladly let me go. And so, at 20 years old, the CEO invited me to join Johnson Holdings. After joining Johnson, life was a whirlwind. I gained hands-on experience working at several elder care facilities and visiting nursing services. Having been raised by my grandparents, I always enjoyed talking with the elderly, and studying caregiving wasn't hard for me at all. I was happy to learn something new every day and felt joy in being of service to others. And so, as the days went by, I earned my caregiver's certification. Before that, I mostly did assistant roles, but having a caregiver's certification expanded my job responsibilities. I felt my potential expanding and loved every minute of work. All thanks to the CEO. In my late 20s, the CEO, who was a great benefactor to me, said he wanted me to work at the company's headquarters. The CEO had long been concerned about the decline in the quality of caregiving as the population aged, and there was a shortage of caregivers. He asked me to transfer to the headquarters and help address these challenges. For me, there was no option but to accept the offer from the man who had done so much for me. I readily agreed. But at the headquarters, there was a boss who seemed to resent the trust the CEO had in me. His name was John, 5 years my senior. John would always tell me things like, "Just because the CEO has taken a liking to you doesn't mean you can get cocky. You work too slow, slacker," and other such insults. On top of that, he often dumped his work on me, and there were times when he blamed his mistakes on me. But everyone has one or two unpleasant superiors. I tried not to let it bother me. I felt so fulfilled by my work that these things seemed trivial. Every day, as I worked hard, I was grateful to the CEO who had chosen me for the job. But the CEO always said, "I didn't do anything. It's all you." He also told me how happy he was to see me grow. I worked my hardest to repay the CEO. After my transfer to the headquarters, I also started training new caregivers. For the sake of the CEO, who was worried about the future of caregiving, I wanted to train the newcomers properly. Despite the busyness, every day was fulfilling. By this time, my grandparents had retired and were spending their days at home. They had a home caregiver, so I could work with peace of mind. My grandparents trusted the home care staff and looked forward to their visits. Seeing my grandparents use home care made me even more passionate about caregiving. I felt like working hard was my way of giving back to my grandparents. But then, suddenly, a sad goodbye came. The CEO passed away. Lately, the CEO had been hospitalized due to worsening of his chronic illness. I visited him multiple times. But the boss kept saying, "I'm fine. Don't worry, I'll be back at the office soon." Although things didn't look great, I believed he would be okay. But sadly, the CEO never returned. When I heard the news of his death from his wife, both I and the other employees were in tears. He was a kind boss who was beloved by all the employees. "Ma'am, I'm truly sorry for your loss. I'm here because of the CEO, and I'm truly grateful." When I said this to her, she shook her head with tears in her eyes. "It's me who should thank you. Since meeting you, he really enjoyed his work. He used to say that it's rare to find someone as sincere and kind as you. He was looking forward to seeing the company prosper with employees like you. Thank you for meeting him and joining our company. The CEO, who took in someone like me who had neither money nor a fancy education. And on top of that, he was grateful to someone like me. The image of the CEO's gentle smile came to my mind. I was devastated, but I couldn't grieve forever. The CEO had left something in my hands. I tried my best to pick myself up and move forward. But there was someone who ruined the CEO's funeral. It was my boss, John, who used to bully me. During the time I was saying my last goodbye to the CEO at the funeral, John came up to me and said, "Now I can finally fire a loser like you. I never liked you since the CEO favored you. Now you've lost your backup. You are fired. Don't ever come to the office again." John said this with a malicious smile. I was about to retort, but before I could, luxury cars started arriving at the funeral. John stood frozen, not understanding what was happening. Then, a person in a sharp suit stepped out of one of the luxury cars. And he approached me, saying, "Sorry for being late." John was shocked and wide-eyed. Not just John, but the other attendees were surprised too. Then, the new boss, Bob, arrived. Bob was the late CEO's son. He had the trust of the employees and was passionate about his work. The late boss had been reassured knowing that he had a capable successor. "The one who's getting fired is you, John, isn't it?" "Bob, what are you talking about? Me getting fired? Is this some kind of joke?" Bob started speaking slowly while looking at John. "Before my father passed, he had set up a home care staffing service company, a subsidiary of Johnson Holdings. The president he appointed for that company is Robert, or should I call him Managing Director Robert? By the way, Robert will also handle the staff training for Johnson. John, you might need some retraining under Robert to get rid of that nasty attitude of yours." Listening to Bob, John just stood there in shock. No way, this can't be true. Him, a president. The man in the suit from the luxury car interrupted John. "It's no lie. I'm Tom, an attorney. The late CEO had entrusted me with managing all the legal documents and company rights. He has officially designated Robert as the president of the new staffing service company in the documents." I was reminiscing about the late CEO. It was in a hospital room that I was approached to take over as the president of a staffing service company after the passing of the former CEO. Of course, I declined. I had no confidence, and I didn't see myself fit for the role of a managing director. But the former CEO said to me, "I want to entrust this to you because I believe in you. My son has promised to help with the management, so rest assured, I'd like you to focus on personnel development. I want you to teach our juniors about your genuine concern for caregiving, your meticulous support, and the importance of maintaining a trust relationship with those in need of care." Comparing to when I first met him, he seemed to have become frail. It must have been the illness. The former CEO was mustering all his strength to entrust me with the new company. I felt the urge to live up to his expectations. I might not be fit to be a managing director, but if there's anything I can do, I want to give it my all. I'll do my best, trust me. When I conveyed this to the late CEO, he gave me a warm smile. It was the same kind smile that had supported and nurtured me all this time. I felt as if the CEO in my memories was cheering me on. I turned to John and said, "John, I'm the managing director now. The late CEO entrusted me with personnel development." Bob looked stunned at my words, but applause arose from the attendees at the funeral. I knew they were cheering for me, and it reaffirmed my determination to press on. A year has passed since then, and the staffing service company I lead is now on track. Management is reassured by the help of Bob and other employees at Johnson's headquarters. I'm focusing on caregiver training seminars, workshops, and study sessions. Currently, John is attending new recruit training. Collaboration is key in caregiving. I hope that any tendency to bully colleagues will be rectified during new recruit training. My current goal is to dispatch as many skilled professionals as possible to the caregiving field. By focusing on personnel development, I believe I can brighten the future of caregiving and repay the kindness of my grandparents and the late CEO. I'm sorry, John, but we need you to leave the company. I was called into the HR director's office and was told this. My name's John. I was working as a full-time employee at a grocery store. And yes, I had just been laid off. Due to the store's financial struggles over the past few years, they resulted to cut personnel costs through a massive downsizing. That day, I became jobless. I slowly pedaled my bicycle on the way home. I didn't even feel like making dinner. Although it'd be a bit of a detour, I thought of picking up a takeaway burger, so I took a less traveled back street off the main road. Just when I was almost at the burger shop, I noticed an elderly lady sitting on the ground. Are you okay? I hopped off my bike and hurried over. She had fallen and hurt her leg. She couldn't get up on her own and was in distress since there weren't any people around to help. Sorry about this, could you give me a hand? Without something to hold onto, it's hard to get up. Ouch. Even though she grimaced in pain, it seemed like she could walk with a limp. I quickly gathered up her scattered groceries and put them back in her bag. Good that nothing here looks broken or crushed. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. As we talked, I properly looked into the elderly lady's face for the first time. Wait a minute, aren't you that guy from the store? With what she said, I finally remembered. This elderly lady was a regular customer at the grocery store where I worked. Perhaps recognizing a familiar face put her at ease, as she looked relieved. She tried to receive the grocery bags from me, but it was clear she couldn't carry them and walk. I asked if there was anyone who could come pick her up, but at this time of day, no one was at home. Worried she might fall again, I decided to carry her bags and accompany her home. I'm so sorry, John. Thank you. She held onto my arm and we walked slowly together. If you could lead me to a handrail, I'll be fine from there. Thanks so much for helping. She kept apologizing, so I reassured her with a smile that it was no trouble at all. You really are kind. You always serve customers with a smile at the store, which makes me very happy. While I appreciated her kind words, it made me feel a bit conflicted. That feeling turned into a faint ha-ha laugh. You seem a bit down. Everything okay? She gave me a curious look, occasionally glancing at my face. Well, actually, today was my last day at that store. Oh dear, were you transferred or did you find another job? When she asked, I honestly told her that I'd been laid off. As we chatted, we arrived at her house. It was a slightly large single-family home, with stylish flower beds on both sides of the walkway, leading to the entrance. With garden lights illuminating our path, we walked slowly towards the front door. You can put everything down here. That bag must have been heavy. I'm truly grateful that you passed by, thank you. There's a step leading to the front door, and the thought of her possibly falling inside had me concerned. If you don't mind, I can carry it inside for you. Upon my offer, the elderly lady replied with a pleased look, well then, I might just accept your kind offer. After I finished carrying the bag, she offered me some tea as her proof of appreciation. Just then, her cell phone rang. Oh, it's Ashley. Please excuse me for a moment. She apologized to me and took the call, updating the person on the other end about the situation. There's no need to rush. Could you pick up some lunch? Yes, that sounds good. Thanks, dear. She hung up the phone after saying that. That was my granddaughter. She said she'll be home soon. Hearing that, I felt relieved and thought about leaving. Wait, Ashley is bringing lunch. It's getting late, and she said she's getting lunch for you too. I think she's already picked it up from the deli. Please, can you at least accept that from us? Hearing her plea, I hesitated about what to do. Then, I decided to graciously accept her kind offer. I was invited to sit, and we made small talk until Ashley returned. The elderly lady began talking about Ashley. Ashley's parents had passed away in a car accident when she was still young. Unfortunately, the couple were both involved in the accident. From then on, it's just been the two of them living together. Ashley has grown up, but she stays with her grandmother, always worrying about her. She said it's clear how caring and gentle Ashley is, always putting her grandmother as first. Every day after work, she comes straight home without any detours. At the end, elderly lady expressed concerns about Ashley not dating and wishes she'd think about her own happiness soon. She probably can't leave the house because she's worried about me, she mentioned. You know, I'd be thrilled if a kind person like you married her. Oh, speaking of which, would you consider marrying my granddaughter? What? She really is a wonderful girl and quite clever. This turn of events was absolutely unexpected. Having her suddenly propose marriage threw me off, and the tender feelings I'd felt earlier flew right out the window. But it got me thinking, is being offered a marriage proposal a common thing in the service industry? I've been approached with the "how about my daughter" line at the supermarket before, and I've heard my female coworker getting the "be my son's bride" line. It's always awkward when someone says that. All you can really do is laugh it off. Suddenly, I heard "I'm home" from the entrance. I figured Ashley must have returned, and I got up from my seat. As I turned toward the door, there she was, just entering the room. "Hi, I hope I'm not bothering you," I said. "I'm so sorry for the trouble. It seems my grandma has been in your care. Thank you so much." She looked apologetic, but I was captivated by her appearance. Ashley was in her office uniform, her hair pulled back, and she was strikingly fair-skinned with bright eyes. She had a gentle vibe, seeming like such a kind soul. I just kept bowing my head slightly, losing my words in front of her. The elderly lady turned to Ashley, starting to chatter away with a happy gleam in her eyes. "Welcome home. So, this gentleman here, he's the cashier from the grocery store I always visit. I'm so glad such a kind soul was there to help me out. So, Ashley, what do you think of him? He's genuinely a great guy. Seems like Grandma brought home a potential guy for you." The elderly lady placed her hand over her mouth, her face beaming with joy. Seeing her like this, Ashley responded with a confused tone. "What are you talking about? I mean, he could be your future husband." Upon hearing that, I was taken aback, wondering if her earlier comment was really just a joke. Of course, Ashley was just as surprised and flustered. "Grandma, what are you saying? It's rude to say that about someone I've just met. I'm so sorry." "Oh dear, I've met him several times before." I couldn't help but chuckle, commenting, "You two really seem close." Ashley, with an apologetic look, thanked me for the day and handed me a packed lunch. Knowing she had bought one for me, I gratefully accepted it. Then, the elderly lady asked, "Why don't you eat it now?" Ashley intervened. "I don't think that's fine with him," and I decided to decline her offer. I expressed my gratitude, and Ashley and I headed towards the entrance. As I put on my shoes and looked back, the elderly lady was limping over to send me off. "Thank you so much. I'm sorry for keeping you up late. And I apologize for not expressing my gratitude properly. Feel free to visit next time." I responded, "Not at all. Thank you for the lunch," feeling warm-hearted by their kindness. I perceived her words as her polite social etiquettes, but they still warmed my heart. Just as I was about to open the door and leave, something happened. "That's right. If it's not too much trouble, could you come over again tomorrow? With this leg, I might not be able to manage it." Apparently, she's arranged a delivery of plants and saplings for her garden tomorrow. But with the pain in her leg, she might not be able to do the job properly. As the elderly lady was speaking, Ashley seemed confused upon hearing what she said. "That's just too much. Grandma, You're acting weird today. Are you okay? You didn't hit your head, did you? Let me check if you have any injuries. I didn't hit my head at all. It's just my foot that hurts. Ashley seemed genuinely concerned, checking Grandma's head for any injuries and asking if anywhere else hurt. With what the elderly lady has asked me, I was surprised too, although I'm jobless anyway and I don't have any plans for tomorrow. If she needs help, I have plenty of time. Should I come over tomorrow? Only if it's not a bother. Ashley hesitated, apologizing, but in the end, we agreed I'd visit in the afternoon. The next day, as promised, I went to the elderly lady's place. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. While I had the elderly lady sit on a small chair, she taught me how to care for the garden. After all, we both enjoyed this moment. But during that, I heard an interesting story. Currently, Ashley is working full-time in an office, but apparently, she's always dreamed of opening a cafe since she was little. She's even graduated from a culinary school. During her college days, she had experience working part-time in eateries, but in the end, she chose to be an office worker. Even if she were to own a cafe or work full-time in one, she'd be working from morning until late at night. But she definitely still want to open a cafe. The reason the elderly lady mentioned me being a potential spouse for Ashley was because she thought if there was someone skilled in customer service, she could start her cafe confidently. Plus, she genuinely felt that Ashley and I might get along well. The day after hearing that, I went over to the elderly lady's house again. After replanting some flowers yesterday, there was some space left, so I decided to buy more plants to fill it. Today's Saturday, and it seems Ashley had a day off, and I made her quite surprised. Goodness, Grandma, did you ask him to come again today? I hope it's not too much trouble. I'm really sorry. Upon seeing me, Ashley immediately apologized, and I briefly explained the circumstances of my visit today. After planting the additional flowers and watering them, Ashley kindly offered, "Why don't you take a break?" Sitting on the porch, the three of us sipped on our coffee. Then, the elderly lady cleared her throat softly and said, "Hey, Ashley, I really want you to achieve your dreams soon." "Huh, what do you mean?" Ashley tried to play it off with a tight-lipped smile. "I don't want you to hold back just for me. I know you're still planning a lot of things." The elderly lady revealed that she knew how Ashley secretly jots down numerous notes in preparation for her dream. It'd be tough to do it alone, but maybe with someone else's help it'd be easier. John here is great with customers. How about getting some help from him? Oh, Grandma, you can't just say things easily. I noticed a slight teariness in Ashley's eyes as she responded. If Ashley's okay with it, I love dealing with customers. But I know trusting an unemployed guy is a hard thing. No way, John, I love the way you handle your customers. You'd be a great partner for Ashley. Without missing a beat, the elderly lady said that, making both Ashley and me chuckle. Oh, Grandma, always acting wild on your own, Ashley playfully remarked. The three of us laughed, lightening the mood for a bit, but soon after, Ashley's expression changed and she seemed deep in thought, biting her lip. You know, maybe Grandma's right. Maybe now's the time to start, Ashley murmured, as if speaking to herself. Maybe she changed her mind, but Ashley mentioned she will reflect on it for a day. Then, the following Sunday, I went over to the elderly lady's house again. It seemed her leg was improving, so I thought of making today the last day of taking care of her. As I was working on the garden with the elderly lady, I was approached by Ashley, asking, "Can I talk to you for a sec?" She had prepared coffee on the porch, and in her hand, she held a notebook. It's a little embarrassing, but can you take a look? She handed over the notebook she had been gripping tightly. Flipping through a page, it was filled with writing. Surprisingly, every page was like that. There were drawings of an ideal cafe's exterior, food illustrations, and tons of recipes. I couldn't help but exclaim, "This is amazing." I've been thinking about opening a cafe. I really want to do what I love. Ashley, looking a bit shy, said this with her eyes sparkling. When Ashley thought about doing it on her own, she was worried about being completely tied down to the business and also concerned about her grandma at home all by herself. But she felt that if someone could be with her, it might ease some of that stress. Moreover, Ashley mentioned she had seen me working at the grocery store. She recalled that I had good customer service skills. If it's not too much trouble, could you join me? I know it's a bit shameless of me to ask. The idea of me becoming a cafe employee wasn't something I had taken too seriously. I never expected her to actually ask. But seeing Ashley's passion in her notes and my own desire to work in customer service again, combined with my urge to try something different, I felt a spark. If you're okay with me, let's do this together. I held my hand out to Ashley. Seeing this, Ashley looked surprised but gave a joyful smile. We then firmly shook hands. She must have been nervous asking me. "Oh, thank goodness," she exclaimed, shaking my hand vigorously. She was genuinely happy. "Shall we open up our own cafe?" she asked excitedly. "Let's go for it." I matched her enthusiasm and responded cheerfully. From that day on, Ashley and I exchanged contact information, communicated through emails, and discussed things at home. We looked at vacant store spaces together and consulted with contractors. Ashley steadily progressed with the preparations, and I supported her throughout. In addition, I began a morning part-time job until the cafe was set up. Although I had some savings, I thought it would be a good idea to earn a bit more for daily expenses since I had the time. And 6 months later, the cafe opened. We found a perfect little vacant shop, and with some renovations, we were ready to start. On the opening day, the place was bustling with neighbors, friends, and people who had seen our flyers. After closing on the grand opening day, they held a celebratory gathering, with the elderly lady joining in too. "Thank you, John, for making this dream come true with me." "No, I should be the one thanking you. See, I knew my intuition about you was right. Must be fate." Honestly, fate and destiny might be more real than I thought. The day I was laid off from my job, I helped an elderly lady and met her granddaughter, Ashley. Now, I'm working beside Ashley to open her dream cafe. You see, John, it wasn't in vain, right? You might have been down that day, thinking about why you've been working for all this time, but now your warm hospitality is shining. It all had a purpose, and of course, it's also because you are such a good person, right, Ashley? Grandma found a keeper, didn't she? At that, both Ashley and I exchanged shy smiles. Then the elderly lady added, "It reminds me of the old days," looking at Ashley's parents. Saying that, she had a distant look in her eyes. Ashley was taken aback by those words and looked at her grandmother's face. "Ashley, you look like your mom and has a fine charm like her. John, you have that gentle aura, just like my son." Ashley was so young back then that I don't think she remembers, but you see, this is where Ashley's parents used to have their shop. Hearing that, both I and Ashley exclaimed, "What?" in surprise. Turns out, Ashley's parents used to run a coffee shop right at this spot. The elderly lady realized it when she came to see the store after renovation was finished. She was so shocked that she was speechless. When she got home and went to her room, that's when her emotions finally caught up, and she broke down crying. She thought about telling Ashley right away, but she decided to keep it quiet until the store officially opened. She wanted Ashley, who was so passionately chasing her dream, to be able to build the store freely without any disruptions. But as the interior progressed steadily, the elderly lady was even more astounded. Ashley's tastes were just like her parents. Whether she was told earlier or not, it would have been the same. And then there was the bank buck she gave Ashley as startup fund. Turns out, it was the life insurance money from Ashley's parents that Grandma had carefully saved just for Ashley. The elderly lady, with teary eyes, said that she's sure Ashley's parents would be delighted to have been able to support Ashley's dream. Also, those sunflowers displayed in the shop, it was John who suggested decorating with them, wasn't it? He said they perfectly matched Ashley's vibe. You know, my son once told Ashley's mom the same thing. It's truly mysterious. It might not have been a coincidence, but destiny. Hearing this, I felt emotions I've never felt before. Did I make it a bit melancholic? At her words, all three of us managed to smile and wiped away our tears. Suddenly, she exclaimed, "Oh," clapped her hands and leaned forward. "Now, you two, don't you have something important to discuss? Got something to tell your old granny, don't ya?" Puzzled, as Ashley and I exchanged glances, the grandma chuckled, causing both Ashley and I to blush. "Oh my, was I early? Haven't you told her yet? I've known for a while." With that, the elderly lady burst into laughter again. "Well, I should just leave you two alone." Grinning, the elderly lady headed to the back room. Left alone, Ashley and I awkwardly looked at each other and shared a shy smile. But this was it. It was now or never. Would you, want to go out with me?" I reached out my hand, just as I did in the past. Yes, it would be an honor. As we shook hands, that was when we officially started dating. Time flew, and as for the cafe, thanks to everyone's support, it's been thriving. Our whole grain bread and vegetable-rich sandwiches for breakfast have become a hit. They're low in sugar and calories, which is one of our top recommendations. Ashley and I are getting along very well, both in the kitchen and the dining area. About 3 months into our relationship, we started to discuss about our marriage. And on our cafe's first anniversary, we actually registered our marriage. When we broke the news to the grandma, she cried tears of joy. After getting married, the three of us live in the grandma's house. She told us, "You're newlyweds, why not live on your own?" But I felt safer here, and above all, it was more fun living with her. Thanks to that, every day is filled with smiles. I hope we continue to live with this happiness and harmony.